Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Reputation Today Prime Time on social media influence. This edition of RT Prime Time is presented in association with The Practice, a dynamic communications firm. The Practice, in association with Reputation Today, unveiled the fourth edition of the social media influencers listing engine, better known as the Smile Report, this morning. You can access the report on bit.ly RT Smile 2023. That's bit.ly RT Smile 2023. We will start the evening today with a short video by the team that worked on this report, showing the methodology used and how they calculated the power grid of influencers. May we have the video, please? Great. I would now like to welcome Nandita Lakshmanan, founder and chairperson at The Practice, to share her thoughts behind this study.
Thank you, Anubhuti. Thank you all for being here today as we gather to celebrate yet another year of the Smile Report and recognize outstanding PR professionals and communicators who are influencers online. The Smile Report started as a means to spotlight the pioneers in our industry who are using social media effectively. However, we soon realized that it was not enough to recognize those with a substantial following. True influence lies in the genuine connections we create, the trust we build through the content we share. Hence, we refined our report to include numbers and the essence of communication, impact, and authenticity. As we kept working and refining our approach over the years, it has only re-established a tenet that I've always held close to me, and I'm sure many of my peers and colleagues in the industry have, that reputation to public relations is sacrosanct. As PR professionals, each one of us must embrace our role as the upholders of reputation and guardians of trust for ourselves, the businesses we represent, and our industry. This comes with a responsibility, and there has been no time more critical for this principle than now, especially with the advent and pervasiveness of AI. AI is revolutionizing how we work, analyze data, and interact with the world. In the realm of public relations, it has become indispensable for gathering insights, identifying trends, and understanding audience behavior. However, as we embrace AI, we must remember that it is merely a tool, not a substitute for human judgment and empathy, at least not yet. Our role as communicators is not just about data analysis and automation. It's about understanding the intricacies of human emotions, cultural nuances, and ethical considerations. The true essence of effective PR lies in striking the balance between technology and human connection. Therefore, the big question we must be concerned about is not whether AI will replace our jobs, but how will we ensure and continue to create and facilitate conversations and narratives that are fact-based, balanced, and reliable. We are the guardians of our firm's reputations, and every message we share, every conversation we start, and every brand we promote is a reflection of who we are as individuals and as an industry. Let us remember that it is not just about the numbers, but the impact we create and the trust we nurture, and no technology can replace that. We're delighted to present this year's social media influencer listing engine, the Smile Report 2023. It's a list, not a ranking, of communication and public relations influencers who have created their niche online and are the absolute best that our industry of corporate communications and public relations has to offer. Congratulations to each one of you who's featured here. Your presence inspires us to do better, to embrace social media responsibly, and to create a lasting positive impact on our industry. Before we proceed to the panel discussion, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the esteemed panel of experts who featured in our jury this year: Karthik Srinivasan, Shravani Dang, Hemant Gole, and K.S. Narahari, for their invaluable contributions and insightful discussions we've had, not just during the jury meetings, but through the year. Your expertise has enriched this report and our understanding of the industry. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate the support of the Reputation Today team, Amit Prabhu and Anubhuti Mathur, for their dedication to the project. And finally, last but not the least, my gratitude to my colleagues at the practice, Aditya, Vignesh, and Abhishek, for their hard work in upholding neutrality and merit throughout this process. With that, I hand it back to Anubhuti. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Nandita. That was indeed well spoken and gave us a good background to this study. Let us now move ahead with the panel discussion with some of the communication leaders who feature in the list. Today's session with these leaders will lay focus on reputation in the age of AI-led social media, preparing for the imminent. The panelists for the discussion today include, in alphabetical order, Himanshu Raj from Pristine Care, Krishna Vilasini of L'Oreal India, Priya Patankar of PhonePe, Sunayana Jairath from CRED, and Xavier Prabhu from PR Hub. This panel will be moderated by Prasad Karat, Vice President at the practice. A warm welcome to all our panelists. I also welcome all those who have joined us live on YouTube today. Please tweet your learnings using the hashtag RTPrimetime, and don't forget to tag our partner at TPR India along with Rep Today Mag. Prasad, over to you now.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anubhuti. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reputation Today Primetime Smile 2023 panel discussion as we celebrate the launch of the 4th edition of the Smile Report. Today's topic is something that's probably close to most of our hearts and on top of our minds too: reputation in the age of AI-led social media, preparing for the imminent. Today, when AI algorithms have major impact on how brands are perceived, it is essential for businesses to navigate the constantly changing social media landscape with care and foresight. Social media has unparalleled reach and influence, which present both opportunities and challenges for companies looking to establish and safeguard their reputation. Public relations professionals and social media communicators are responsible for managing a brand's image and voice, making them crucial in this journey of transformation. The integration of AI technologies has enormous potential in the strategic process. Today, we gather here with a shared purpose to explore how AI can assist communication professionals in delivering targeted, authentic, and impactful messages to their audiences. Our goal is to understand how AI can enhance positive brand perceptions, identify and mitigate risk, and ensure ethical communication practices during the AI revolution. Our questions will focus on the practical use of AI to strengthen brand reputation while considering its ethical implications. Our esteemed panel of experts will offer diverse perspectives and valuable experiences, leading to an enriching discourse on reputation management in the digital age. So without further ado, let's get started with the discussion. And I will start off with Sunaina. My first question is for you. We live in an era which is crisis prone, right? And I think the last 2 to 3 years has shown us so many examples of the same. So how do you think PR professionals can integrate AI into communication strategies, which helps them swiftly detect and respond to negative sentiments emerging on social media? What are the best practices you feel are of using AI to manage reputational risk during turbulent times?
Thanks, Prasad. And before I begin, thank you everybody for having me on the panel, and special thanks to Reputation Today and the team at Praxis, and a warm welcome to everybody on the panel and people who joined it. Prasad, I think your question's very interesting, and again, I am not an expert in AI, but in general, I think crisis communication has always, and effective crisis communication and management has always required people in the throes of the crisis to be quick thinking and uh, take smarter decisions, better decisions, and tools that can help the process of decision making will always be very effective as we go forward. In specific context of AI, in AI-led analytics or AI-led tools, I think what they can really help with is help you identify and get to the root cause of the crisis faster. It can also, and a prudent use of AI tools can also help you, uh, very important, can also help you get better understanding and better insights of precedences. Because mostly you won't have new crises. The crisis situations may evolve, people involved in the crisis may evolve, but you will always have a lot of precedents and a lot of historical knowledge and reference to refer back to, which given how things change that quickly, you may not have either the time or the bandwidth to actually look into how best some of these crises were solved, or even refer to global best practices. And I think that's where AI tools and AI analytics is really helpful. It helps you understand, it helps you analyze precedences, take some best practices, take some learning, which will help you take a better and smarter decision in your current crisis situation as well. And I think another important area of help that AI tools can do is I'm using the word near real time analysis. How a situation is developing, how a situation is unfolding, how various influencers or stakeholders are reacting to it. Because the situation usually in crisis situations are very dynamic, you may not be able to find time to go through all the information and tweak or modify your strategy, and that's where I think AI tools can help.
Great. Thank you, Sunaina. I think talking about precedents and historical knowledge, I think that's a very important aspect in crisis because obviously when you're in a business, there is that ability to understand certain scenarios, and data also helps a lot in that, right? So therefore, Priya, my next question is for you around the entire predictiveness or the predictive analytics in reputation management, right? And we've seen how social media communicators use AI generated insights and the data to really mitigate risk and prevent any potential crisis even before they escalate proactively, right? Can you share examples of successful AI-driven risk mitigation strategies that you've come across, or your perspective on that?
First of all, thank you, Prasad, for having me here. Looking forward to an interesting discussion. So, I think I would divide this into a reactive and a proactive scenario. Reactive is something I think most brands, including ours, are able to do pretty well. For reactive scenarios, I notice there are enough social listening tools and social media monitoring tools which look at a trend or an activity snowballing into an event which can impact your reputation. And sometimes, funnily enough, brands are unaware because it has absolutely nothing to do with my product, service, or offering. I realize, okay, I'm trending for something I have absolutely no role to play in. So I think those sentiments most tools are able to analyze pretty well. uh, if I talk about our business, I think one place we're a payments app. One place where we seem to use this extremely well is detecting fraud patterns and flagging them off and calling them out quickly before any damage is done. So, won't go into the technical details, but this is one place where I think AI has been and is a game changer. We process close to 5 billion over 5 billion transactions a month. So, here having these patterns does help, uh, and it is critical for the business. I also for PR I visualize this just being an extension of what we are doing, because at the core it's just detecting an anomaly or a behavior which is contrary to what we imagine. This is the reactive part. Now, when they come to the proactive part, in my head, still there is work to be done, because a lot of these tools are very good when it comes to the reactive mode. But as a PR professional, if there is a probabilistic model which tells me what can be a expected response to a situation, for instance, if I'm launching a product or an offering, or there is a certain kind of media press release I'm intending to push out, and I know what is the expected response with a probabilistic model, I can tweak my message if it needs being ready with a certain set of responses, or a crisis escalating. These things can be way better managed. So I think real-time sentiment analysis of a company, a set of events or people, when you put them out in the news, uh, that is where the proactive detection can help. There is work to be done there. Honestly, the reactive part, I think most people are getting right. Even there are tools available. The proactive detection, yes, there is work to be done, and I do see room for significant growth there.
Right. Now, very interesting is saying that, Priya, I think the reactive and proactive analysis that goes into, kind of gauging and put the potential snowball effect that it can have on the brand, right? I think today what we're also seeing is with the amount of data and so much conversations out there, I think the AI system also has that learning curve, right? In terms of the kind of sentiments it picks, the positive, neutral, negative sentiment it picks. And therefore, I would like to come to Krishna to really understand, how can social media communicators really use, AI to really understand the sentiment analysis to monitor conversations, gauge public perception of the brand, real time, right? All of this. And then how does this information really drive immediate and effective reputation management strategies, the way we kind of plan for these things together?
Thank you, Prasad. That's a question with multiple facets, so I'll try to keep it simple and address all of them. I think what AI-based social media really does is it gives us, it gives us a view on an audience, cohort. It doesn't tell you about a particular individual, which makes your communication very, very focused, but it kind of gives you a view on a cohort. So you see that in terms of audience segmentation, you get that very, very well. The various tools that are currently, monitoring conversations, and not just crisis, but the rhythm of business, the day-to-day conversations. And I'm going to give you a very different example. Say, music lovers. Some of us who are ardent fans of the 60s and the 70s. Imagine that there are conversations that are going on, say, Beatles, or I don't know, Black Sabbath, and it basically shows us that for example, and if I'm an event person who's doing, indie events in the basements in Bangalore or in Bombay. So for me, what it gives me is that there are conversations that are happening that still talk to the music of 60s and 70s. So if I'm doing my events, then my content is curated to kind of really, connect with the audience segment that loves rock music. So, it's a different kind of an example, but I think that's how I see it. And music, art, films, thanks to the recent Barbie and Oppenheimer, you would see that, there is a certain kind of cohort that is emerging. So it's not always this versus this. So it wasn't Barbie versus Oppenheimer, for example. It's also about, the joy of watching films. So the second aspect of of a target audience insight it gives me is the adjacencies. A music lover can also love films which feature music. A music lover also likes certain kind of literature. So when you have these kind of nuance insights into the audience, if you now bring that example at a corporate level, and change music to, say, products and services that we want to talk about, or we want to talk about the commitment we have towards our people and planet, it then becomes very easy for us. So the monitoring that we do, the analytics that we get, we watch out for those, keywords. So if it is auto, we will be looking at, say, design influencers. If it is music, we are looking at, sorry for the plug, but rock music. So I think that really works for me. And I, to end this, I think I would also like to say that, for me, AI is something that is collaborative, with the PR industry. Social media is just the manifestation. You see what we are posting, and what we should be posting based on the insights. But for me, more than that, the fact that you get these very rich learnings, that can build the reputation of a brand or a company, that is, that is really, is critical. And it's really about, so I would say, if I were to, draw a parallel, it's really about this child prodigy who can run really fast or do a math equation really fast, but to what end? And that's where, the PR professionals come. We come in at the last mile, at a critical junction, where we give that direction, we give a purpose, to the various tools that are available.
Great, great. Really love that analogy that you drew against movies and music and the adjacencies there, right? Which and also the important aspect of how we can drive, AI and the kind of analytics and data for reputation, and which brings me to a question for you, Xavier. AI and AI has offered really powerful short-term benefits, but how can PR professionals really incorporate it to their long-term reputation management strategies, right? How do you see AI really evolving into the context of communication over the next decade? What potential challenges or opportunities do you foresee in maintaining brand reputation as AI continues to kind of evolve in this kind of a pace?
Yeah. I want to thank everyone, and I think Amit and the team at RT, and Nandita Narahari and the team at Practice, and to my lovely panelists. So let me tell you, Prasad, a couple of things, right? See, we are really talking about not just AI here. I think AI is a very, very broad word. I think for us, the most important and critical one is generative AI. I think generative AI is actually the most critical one, and I'll tell you what happens with generative AI. Generative AI basically learns, and the more data that it gets fed over a period of, let's say, months or years, I don't know about that, it starts getting better. So the real challenge that we are talking about, PR and comms, is really when generative AI kicks in the second or the third generation. Now, it's a moot question, when is that going to kick in? But I think when that kicks in is when we're going to have the real scenario, challenge, excitement, opportunity, or whatever that we're talking about. That's going to happen then, because then AI is going to get as close to real as possible, and it's going to get to real, human intelligence as close as possible. And that's when it will pose all the challenges, it will create all the opportunities and all of that. So that's the first one that I just wanted to tell you. The second one is that, see, basically today, AI to me comes right in the middle, right? So if you look at it, an area like content, right? Uh, to me, I will always say that content is like three buckets, right? There is a lot of low-hanging, low-quality content at the bottom of the pyramid. Then you have the thought leadership content at the top of the pyramid. Now, ChatGPT and all of those tools will attack the bottom. Today I think we have the word called automated content. I think content automation and all of that, they will go in the bottom. So the bottom low hanging content will be taken away by AI and AI driven tools. Uh, I think the professionals will operate in the second and the third. And I think as AI gets better, we will get pushed up and up. So finally we will probably just do the real high quality original thought leadership content. For example, Krishna spoke about rock music and Beatles, right? That emotional connect to music AI can't do, but AI can definitely do a 60-word piece for her on Beatles absolutely accurately in no time, and it will get better at it. So that's what I'm talking about, right? The bottom will go to AI, and I think the top, and that is where the opportunity I see for PR, right? So there are going to be two critical questions, right? AI cannot work by itself. AI needs a person, a human to brief. And I think that human and their intelligence or their knowledge, their understanding is going to be extremely critical. So that's where we come in as communicators and all of that. The other end where we come in is, see, AI can churn anything out. Who's going to make the sense out of it? Who's going to decide, analyze and decide at the end of it? That's again us, right? So we are going to be powerful, probably using AI to give us that feed, and then probably become the people who sort of use AI very smartly and leverage it for our advantage. And at the end, take what it spews out, and I'm sure it's going to get better and better, and then use it to make better decisions in communication or whatever. And I'll give you an example, right? When we said automated content, one of the places it's going to get very easily used is, let's say, generating headlines for your Insta post. You can just type AI, I'll give you 20 Insta post topics today. Now, it's someone like us who got to sit and say, hey, you know what? I don't think this is going to fly. I think let's pick this topic. I think that is where we are going to see our own evolution, right? So if you go and say, I am good at generating Insta topics, A is going to replace you. But if you're going to go and say, I understand the pulse of my TG, and after 10 that A is spewing up, I think I will be able to pick up with my insight the one that will attract the most view or attention or engagement. I think that is where we would come in and add value. So I think it is a mixed bag. It is both an opportunity and a threat. And I'll tell you, it's a threat if you belong to the bottom. It's an opportunity if you belong in any other part of the funnel. So I think for us, I think we PR and comms people always talk about strategy, thinking, connecting the dots, all of that. I think we will be forced to go deeper and deeper into that, because the AI will come and say, look, I'll take care of the normal. Don't worry about it, right? I will clear it and I will get better at it. So I think we will move to the real value part. And I think that's good for all of us, right? That's where we all need to be and need to belong. And I think AI will probably push us to be more strategic. The second thing I would automatically say is that all of us have to become tech savvy, because AI itself will generate crises. It's not just a crisis communication or a management tool, but AI will be a crisis. And tomorrow, I heard this example somewhere, is that there was an AI influencer. There was an issue with an AI influencer. As a brand, what will you do with an AI influencer? They are no legal entity. Whom will you file a case against? So there are all those things that will come into play. And AI-driven crisis is going to be even more tougher for all of us, because you're talking to non-human beings who just have, uh, you know, uh, uh, you know, no emotions, nothing. So those are the new challenges that will come, and I think we will need to become better at technology and understanding how to do tools and platforms and all of that, and that's the evolution for us. So that's the 2 points that I just wanted to share, Prasad.
Great, great. I mean, very interesting, Xavier. And I think also an important message that how PR professionals really need to scale that value chain, so that we're not really threatened by AI, which could ultimately take over some of the really mundane stuff that we end up doing, right? And here is, and you also spoke about a very interesting aspect of content creation, right? And here's where I want to come to Himanshu. How do you think AI can really utilize the understanding of user behavior preferences, and then create content which is also at the same time responsible content, right? I think there is also this conversation about freedom of speech and expression in social media platforms. So how do you think a AI platform which is able to kind of understand the user behavior and preferences, therefore is able to also churn content which is very responsible, and thereby enhancing the brand perception and reputation? You're on mute, Himanshu. If you could just unmute yourself.
Can you hear me? Yes, sorry. Thank you so much, Prasad, for the question. And thank you to the Reputation Today team and the practice and my esteemed panelists for having me here. So that's a very interesting question, right, Prasad, on how AI can help generate content, right, or responsible, keeping in mind what the target user wants to hear or how they want to, what they want to hear about, right? So AI basically studies a lot of data and it identifies what resonates with target audience, right? So if you know in public, in basically in performance marketing, right, we do a lot of A/B testing. So AI can do that for you, right? It can do A/B testing for you on basis on the performance of the content. It can tell you which messaging strategies to use, what content basically works for the audience and what doesn't work for the audience, right? So it can do it faster compared to what humans can do, right? So it can help you also track a lot of popular topics, keywords, trending discussions, enabling the creation of relevant content and engaging content, right? For example, that would be the next level of what Wiziki and Meltwater do currently, right? So that if you are using Wiziki or Meltwater, they have a uh, system for sentiment analysis which tells you negative, positive after the coverage comes out. But in the next I think the next level of AI, it can tell you in advance what kind of content will help you resonate with the audience, which kind of content will help you resonate with the media, how to write a press release, for example, or so yeah. So I think AI can help you use a lot of interpret all these sort of content types using sentiment analysis.
Great. I think very interesting aspect, that you spoke about, Himanshu, and I think which also brings me to the next question, right, around building authenticity, right? And Priya, I would like to ask you this question. It is vital that in the social media era that we maintain that authenticity, right? A brand maintains the authenticity, or an influencer maintains the authenticity. How do you think AI can be employed to humanize brand interactions? There may be limitations to it, but how do you kind of still utilize automation for various level of efficiencies one can achieve, and how do you ensure that AI driven communication aligns with companies brand voice values and reflects a personality which is not completely of a particular brand or an influencer?
I really like the way Xavier actually bucketed some of the content and spoke about what parts can be outsourced to an AI, or you can use AI for generating it. I extremely strongly resonate with it, and in fact, when I was thinking about your question, you know what my response was: don't do it. I mean, my essentially to explain this better, when everybody has the same content farm, there is zero differentiation. Hence the signal. There is zero signal over the noise. Imagine if all our content was AI generated. It just started sounding very similar. We would just be. As brands, we would just be identical to each other. I'd say be bold enough to stand out. And personally, for me, what has stood out is the iconic 1984 ad from Apple, which just I remember blew the industry away, and it was just extremely unexpected. I would say using AI generated content specifically for things like FAQs, your help centers makes sense, but not for outbound messaging. I think for outbound messaging, if content is a blocker, do less, reduce the frequency, put out more relevant and impactful content only. Else, it's like my bot talking to your bot, a lot of sound and thunder, but hardly any useful connect. As brands, we just can't have that, because finally we are talking to people, and you need to have some the bot generated content just does not cut it in many ways, is how I'd say. Funnily, I've always said that my the social media happy birthday messages now are so bot generated. They're semi automated and almost meaningless. My bot is wishing your bot with flowers. So I think that just doesn't work. I think Xavier just summed it up in terms of saying the more regular stuff can be AI generated, but the thought leadership is something we need to focus a lot more on. And as I said, my first thought was just don't do it. Do less, but do it more meaningfully.
No, great. I mean, that's a great perspective, Priya. I think with what a lot of the brands using bots for these communications to also to achieve a certain level of personalization to their users, right? And I think that they're to an extent able to achieve it, but we don't know the like you said, the personal touch that you're able to create with that. Krishna, I would like to ask you a little more about the entire personalization that you can achieve, right? Say, how do you think, AI can really help, communicators tailor communication efforts, especially when you're engaging with social media on, audience at large, numbers, kind of maintaining a very personal touch could be a challenge, right? If it's done through human intervention. But how do you think, through AI, you could target the message, make it very relevant, at the same time also ensure data privacy and maintain those ethical standards?
Thank you, Prasad. I'm actually going to answer the second part of your question first. As we are talking about volumes, and a mass that we are communicating to, I think it's very, very important to understand two things. One is consent, that before we bombard the consumer with any information, video, audio, pictures, memes, consent is very, very important. And and right after that is the consumer or the viewer's absolute right to exit without being asked too many questions. So I would say that for me would be the starting point of creating any kind of content. um, the other part of your question as to how do we tailor our messaging, I think once we understand what the consumer has been watching, what the consumer has been reading on on the on various platforms, what it really tells brands is not just who he or she is, but also gives us a view into the entire ecosystem. If it is really about somebody who likes say a product like, say, pens, then we also know that this person would be interested in, say, ink and books and literature and handwritten tools. So what it really does is it gives us a wider canvas to play with, and therefore our messaging will go a little beyond my products and services. And I'm bringing this conversation back into how do I build that reputation, or how do I build that absolute affinity with the consumer by delivering a message that's not just on my messaging on, say, a product or a service that I want him to buy or her to buy, but really letting the consumer know that, hey, we know what you really like, and we are playing on this wider canvas where, so if you're talking about pens, you're also talking about books, you're also talking about paper, you're also talking about recycled paper. So you're also widening the consumer's understanding. For me, that I think is very, very critical. So as much as we are customizing, we're also kind of complementing and supporting the consumer's whole experience on social media, elevating that. And I think that is very, very critical. One of the pitfalls, or one of the dangers of really depending on these absolute targeting kind of data that we get is, the easiest for us is to push a product message, or push a message that has a path to purchase. You like this, go ahead and buy it on one of these platforms. But I think that becomes transactional. So I would say that if the future for us really is to have that consumer hooked on to key messages. Maybe the person likes one particular topic, is consuming one particular topic, but also look at him or her in a longer term. So for me, that monitoring has to be slightly more longer term, so I'd get like a wave of information. And with AI analytics and predictive analytics, I kind of get a curve or a wave into what this person wants. Then my messaging, which is definitely going beyond products and services and what I want to deliver, comes back to the core of what I want him or her to take away from this messaging. Yes, of course, there would be some messaging that is around the brand or a service that I'm providing, but really give that a little bit more holistic learning experience is what something that I think communications professionals should do.
Great. I think very interesting. You spoke about messaging and kind of really um, uh, kind of building that recall and kind of also in the process cross selling more than just what you want to kind of convey, right? And I've also seen several brands also use influencers, typically to kind of also break that monotony of communication, which typically happens through brand pages and stuff, right? So, Sunaina, I would like to ask you here, how do you think, AI-driven analytics will really help brands identify these key individuals, who we believe brings that authenticity in their narrative for the brand, and also helps build, this meaningful relationship, which will, ultimately helps in brand reputation and also amplify the positive messages that you want to convey through these influencers.
Thanks. I think Krishna touched upon some very important points, when she was talking about uh, finding the right messages, finding the right tonality, and how to, take your communication beyond transaction with your consumers. And influencers, brand advocates on uh, social platforms, otherwise, are an important stakeholder in strengthening your any brand's communication and reputation with a larger stakeholder base. I think, again, I think as with crisis communication, even in case of identifying the right and the most relevant brand advocates, the power of analysis is where AI tools can really help. It's not, I think it's not humanly possible to have a deep and a wide understanding of a particular influencer or advocate and their areas of interest. And that's where I think AI tools can help. They can help you take smarter decisions as to if if a influencer or an advocate is the right fit for your brand, the right fit for your brand's values and your brand's persona, and it can help you, do a wider analysis for that. And I think, like for example, if it's a D2C brand, while you will definitely target influencers and advocates who are your category specific influencers, uh, because you are a B2C brand, influencers and social media advocates who talk about consumption patterns, consumer behavior, how how buying patterns, spending habits are changing, may not you may not be able to address them or target them without using tools. And that's where I think tools can help. So I think, as I think Priya mentioned this, and I think Krishna also touched upon this, that uh, being able to understand adjacencies, being able to understand more overlap patterns, and while being also able to fine tune on the voice of a advocate or an influencer and how well does it align and suit with your brand personality and your brand voice, is where AI tools can help.
Right, absolutely. I think the right fitment to the brand, in terms of the advocates you choose is very important. And I think that brings me to the second last question before we open it to the audience to ask questions. Is also around this very pertaining, very important topic of misinformation, right? I think we're also seeing that. Especially with Chat GPT, I've heard a lot of people talk about using Chat GPT, which throws a lot of fake news, with no credibility check, kind of credibility layer that it goes through, right? So therefore, Himanshu, tell us a little bit about how do you think, AI technologies really assist in, identifying and countering misinformation and fake news about a brand? And how do you think, how do you strike that right balance between correcting false information and also avoiding that amplification that happens along with it?
So I think this is a basically a two-part question. So the first part, right, about misinformation. I think it's become a big menace in the society right now, just from not from brand point of view, but we have seen what's happened in Manipur, right, where people have lost lives also because of misinformation, right? So AI can play a very crucial role in tackling in misinformation on social media, right? You have NLP, you have machine learning, right, which analyze huge amounts of data for inconsistencies and help identify and counter fake news, right? I'll give an example. There is a project called Fandango, which has been sponsored by the EU, right? Just and what Fandango does is basically they work with media organizations to fight fake news and misinformation, basically, right? So the first thing they did was a couple of media channels reached out to Fandango and they worked together to identify fake images or deepfake videos these days, which are very very popular, right? And then they will tell journalists if this video or image which has come to them is real or fake, right? So Fandango is working very closely with the media houses across Europe to basically fight fake news. Plus, they also went on an overdrive recently. I don't know if you guys have. I mean, there was entire news about huge riots in France, right? So there was a huge spread of misinformation, right? So Fandango was on its Twitter account and on social media presence was kept on finding fake images or fake videos and putting it out through the media, right? So they it did a lot of work to fight disinformation at that time. Plus, coming back to your second question, which is how do you strike a right balance, between how to correcting false information and avoiding amplification is, I think, AI can help deploy targeted and factual responses, right, to debunk inaccuracies. For example, data analytics and AI can basically uh, train you to find what what is the impact of the content and basically tell you and how to take corrective action, right? Plus, I have seen chatbots. We have seen on social media which can monitor and moderate your online presence and also promptly catch false claims before they gain any traction, right? So I think AI chatbots on social media have done some good work when it comes to basically to stop the false spread of false information.
Right. So
Hmm.
thanks, Himanshu. I think that's a good. I think you've really set the context well for the last question, where I also want to, understand, your perspective about. I would like to ask Xavier this question about ethical AI integration in social media, right? Because while there are both sides of the coin here, how do you think Xavier, PR heads and social media communicators can ensure that transparency and accountability in AI-driven decision-making process, right? Which really safeguarding against any biases or any potentially unintended consequences that might affect the brand's reputation in the long run.
So just on a lighter note, this is my fourth AI panel in 3 months. So I will come across as a lot more knowledgeable. So don't, it is just that I've been learning from 20 panelists now. So that's on the lighter side. But Prasad, I don't intend to scare, but I think since there may be a lot of PR and comms professionals here, there's one thing that I've learned, we got to be really careful. For example, a lot of PR and comms professionals are using AI tools today to, let's say, write a press release. Please know that the information that you're feeding to a AI engine is not your property. It's universal and it's going to sit in someone else's server. So, and I can't tell you the company. There was a company that was using AI tool, and I won't tell you the AI tool to draft a press release. It was actually available publicly. Now, that's something that all of us have to be mindful of, because many of us are thinking, hey, it's a tool. I'm typing something, it's producing me. My work is easier, shorter. I'm very happy, all of that. But I think you've got to be careful because that engine is not your engine. The engine is a engine that's available to a third party. And I don't know how many of them are open, how many of them are closed, how many of them have walls around it, how tough are those walls. So I think we got to be mindful of that. The second problem is IP. Okay. And it's going to be a major problem because today, let's say I used AI to write the first part of a draft of an article for a client. Now, tomorrow, there is going to be a question on who owns that article, because the moment I've used AI, you've lost IP, because AI is generic, right? It is pouring the using the bots to pour all the billions and trillions of content available, and then it's getting me something, and then I'm building something on that. So there is going to be that IP challenge that's going to come at all of us when we start using AI, and that's going to be very difficult to solve. And I think we are going to have these conversations more and more between clients, agencies, and all of that. Actually, going to ask, did you write this article or AI wrote this article? Now you're going to have, or you and AI together wrote this article. Now there is going to be these kind of discussions that's going to come into play increasingly, and all of this will pose ethical challenges, right? Because there are ethical challenges to that. And I don't know, all of you know this, right? Guardian actually had an AI written article published on paper, on print, right? And it happened to someone else as well. And today, I think that's the real challenge today, right? That we're going to have all of this come, and as comms professionals, I think we are all going to start using, like Himanshu was talking about, what I think there are now filtering tools available. now use filtering tools to actually first see, is this generated by a human or AI? So that filtering tool will tell you, hey, no, this was generated by AI, this is generated half by AI, half by human, and then probably fully human. So you understand, right? This is getting really complex, right? And I think that's what we're all going to contend with. It's going to pose some new challenges to all of us. And I think we are going to have this, one way or the other in a year or two. I don't know when this will evolve so quickly. But I think as comms professionals and PR professionals, we got to be sort of be ready for this. And I think we got to be mindful that, while it looks very easy and very effective and efficient, it is going to pose challenges to all of us, as we start using, because a lot of information that we deal with as communicators is essentially very confidential, right? And you don't want even a whimper of it going out. For example, I will tell you one more thing, right? People use this to generate crisis communication plans. Understand something, your input is a real input, an input that you don't want any soul outside of your team to know, not even your company, right? And it is going and sitting in an open engine, right? And all of these are things that we got to be mindful of. And I think there will be a lot of challenges. So I think we got to be really, adapted using filtering tools. We got to have our own antenna up in terms of what we are coming into face with, and all of that. And I think that is going to become more and more critical for us. And I think we are going to be, learning more and equipping ourselves more to sort of look at, this, and then separate the wheat from the chaff, and really know, how do we generate it. And also, I think we got to be really be transparent in terms of where we are using AI to generate content to our clients as well, and go on upfront and say, look, I used AI, to do the first draft, or for the background research or secondary research, and then this is what I did. And I think you got to be really doing that slowly and over a period of time. So I think all of those things, I think we got to start bringing in, so that we sort of also prepare ourselves and ready ourselves to face what AI, and particularly generative AI, poses before us. And so that's the 2 points that I wanted to leave with. And the last one that actually I also wanted to tell you is that it will be good for the CEOs and all of that, because I do talk to a lot of them, and one of the biggest problems, they don't want to be on Twitter, is that the moment you have the PhonePe or the Cred or anybody else on Twitter, the first thing customers do is complain. I had the problem, this is why you're lousy, I didn't get my reward, and all of that. So they shut themselves off, right? So one of the things AI can do is, it can actually filter all the complaints and put it to a single department, and AI can do that efficiently. So the CEO can not look at all those things that scare him away from Twitter or any threats or any other platform. I think I should have said threats and Blue Sky and all the others, but and then let him do what he wants to do. So there are those good ones as well. So I just wanted to leave you with that.
Oh, great, Xavier. I think a perfect way of really summarizing the conversation. I think to the last point you said, I really hope Elon Musk is listening to this conversation and he takes some tips from what you said as far as this filter goes. But jokes aside, I think it was a great discussion, and we have one question from from the audience, and I will let me just try to comprehend this question a bit. Is the AI content most current and connects with the trend, or even that depends on what you key in to get the info out? So I think it's largely around the content creation that one can derive out of AI. And I think maybe Imanshu, given you spoke about that earlier, if you'd like to kind of take that on. You're on mute, Imanshu.
Sorry, I was just reading the question again. If
Yeah, it's basically AI content, is AI content the most current and connects with the trend, and even that depends on what you key in. I think he's talking more about the trending, the kind of trend setting, or rather the trend spotting that AI can do, and then accordingly churn out content basis that.
Correct.
So how do you can use it? Yes.
Again, so it's a two-part thing, right? If it's generative AI, right? So it'll learn on its own, and it'll then identify popular topics, keywords, and trending topics. Initially, it might not. If you write something right now on ChatGPT, it might give you data information, but ChatGPT will learn over time, right? So it can learn to identify popular topics, keywords, trending discussions. So yeah, I mean, it can help you identify, and we have done this as well, right? So I've seen people using the current example is ChatGPT, yeah, to use basically to find ideas on content, current contents, or what's a current topic of discussion, to make social calendars, to make content calendars, right? So I think, yeah, it does, but it needs to learn. It is not perfect, right? It will evolve over time. It will learn over time. But right now, at the current state, I don't think it's perfect.
Great.
So,
Krishna, I think,
Prasad,
yeah, just a sec,
go ahead.
Xavier. I think Krishna wants to add a perspective on the previous point you made. So, Krishna, if I can let you kind of go here.
Thank you, Prasad. I was just thinking about this whole focus on press releases and campaign plans and documentation that our agency partners do. Full disclaimer: I used to work in a PR agency, and then I moved to the corporate side. And I wanted to say one thing to the team here, and I'm sure you'd appreciate, is that trust and equity with a client is not on the basis of how lovely a press release or a plan has been. I think it's really about those one-on-one offline conversations, either during a crisis or during a critical part of a brand's journey or a corporate's journey. And there, AI only supports. But I think as PR professionals, and on both sides, whether you're in an agency or you're on the corporate side, when you have that meaningful discussion, conversation with the decision maker, whether it's a CEO or a brand custodian, it's what really stands out for me is the value that you bring in. You could bring in the AI insights, you could bring in all the platforms and the tools, but it's really still at the end of the day, the equation between between two people and that especially between an agency and a client would always be offline, and would always kind of really depend on what is the kind of quality conversation centering around strategy that we would have. Thank you,
Great.
and very nicely put, Xavier. It really got me thinking.
Yeah,
Right.
Prasad, I was just trying to add to what Imanshu was saying.
Sure.
Actually, this AI thing is all about algorithms, and there is a guy who's writing and that's actually a problem. For example, I'll tell you, if the guy who writing the algorithm thinks that physically challenged people cannot be good for music, I'm just giving you an example. It will actually reflect in the way that AI tool will work, because AI is nothing but algorithms. So whichever information it's going to look at, it's going to look at it from that glass, tinted glass. And that's why we got to be careful. For example, that guy doesn't like thinks that women are not good for physically heavy tasks. Let's say he has that bias, and he creates that algorithm. So this actually is very powerful because it creates a systemic bias, because it's an algorithm. You've created an algorithm, and the algorithm will run billions of times on its own, right? Till someone changes that algorithm. So you're going to have a lot of those biases which are systemic that's going to creep in. For example, I did read up somewhere that in recruitment, this is going to pose a problem, because the algorithm then decides who gets filtered to the next level. It's an algorithm that decides, because the HR team only looks at what the algorithm has filtered. Now, what if the algorithm has inbuilt biases? How are you going to address that? Because that's really powerful, because that determines who's going to come into a company. And you're looking at things like DEI and all of that. That's going to have a large implication on that. So I think in Raghu's question, I also want to point out that it is not just about the information is current. It's also about whether the information is without biases. I think that is one. And I just wanted to respond to Krishna. COVID time, we used to have all this Zoom and team calls. I just had a chat with a client 3 months back in Zoom, and then I met him in person, and then he's sharing information like God's know what for 1.5 hours. And I said, why didn't you do this on Zoom? He said, I didn't feel like it. And that's really what all of us as human beings are. how much of our AI comes and all of that. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, when I sit in the room, like Krishna said, one to one, right? People are people. That comfort, that connect, that chemistry is what opens them
Yeah.
up. AI will
Absolutely.
never be able to do that. I think that's what I just wanted to.
Sorry, Xavier. I need to. I mean, great perspective. I think we can definitely have a chat on this offline. But in the interest of time, thank you all. Thank you for being a lovely panel. Had a great discussion, and I will pass it on to Anubhuti now. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasad, for this fabulous discussion. And I'm sure our listeners are going away with a lot of learnings and tons of inspiration from all of you today. I would like to thank our panelists, Himanshu, Krishna, Priya, Sunaina, and Xavier, for their time and insights today. Thank you to all our attendees for taking the time out this evening. If you have signed up for Praxis, we will look forward to seeing you in Chennai on the 22nd of September. Follow us at Rep Today Mag on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram for all updates. Thank you very much.